Good morning. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, the podcast that gives your brain something to chew on besides email. Today's big idea? Nothing. That's right. Doing nothing, it turns out, is good for you. Science is now telling us that staring into space, wandering through the woods, or drifting off for a nap might actually be the most productive thing you do all day. Neuroscientist Joseph Jebelli says it all comes down to the brain's default network, a mysterious behind-the-scenes system that fuels our intelligence, memory, and creativity. And the best way to activate it? Rest. Here's Joseph to share some surprising ideas from his new book, The Brain at Rest: How the Art and Science of Doing Nothing Can Improve Your Life.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Jebelli. I'm a neuroscientist and writer, and I want to talk to you about the neuroscience of rest and the most important part of your brain that you've probably never heard of. And to do that, I'm going to share with you 5 of the key insights from my book, The Brain at Rest. Overwork is literally killing us. This is something we really need to talk about. I spoke to many people from different lines of work, and while each had their own story, together they pointed to something bigger, a global pandemic quietly being ignored by governments everywhere, which I call the work pandemic. I call it a pandemic because it is literally killing a huge number of us. And, like other pandemics, the statistics of overwork are grim. Globally, overwork causes 745,000 deaths a year, a 29% increase since 2000. 3 in 5 employees now report a lack of interest, motivation, and energy, a 38% increase since 2019. The Japanese even have a word for working to death, karoshi, which is estimated to cause 20,000 deaths a year in Japan. In the brain, overwork thins the frontal cortex in the same way that aging does. It literally makes the brain older than it is. Like a forest gradually disappearing, your neurons lose the branch-like structures known as dendrites, which, once gone, are incredibly hard to recover. The frontal cortex is also the brain region responsible for good judgment and an awareness of long-term consequences, making it the only region that could advise a person against working too hard. Economically, our culture of overwork cost Britain's economy £20.7 billion in 2022, and this figure is set to escalate rapidly in the coming years. The estimated cost to the global economy for mental health issues such as depression and anxiety is $1 trillion a year, forecast to reach $16 trillion by 2030, a sum that would fund universal healthcare in all low and middle income countries 3 times over. And so, while it's true that working conditions are better than in the past, the inescapable fact is that we are in a dramatic regression in terms of burnout and overwork. So, why are things this way, and what can we do about it? It is rest, not working harder, that is the key to sustained productivity. It's fair to say we live in a world obsessed with work and short-term productivity. We're constantly told that to be happy, creative, and successful, we need discipline and focus. But what neuroscience now shows us is that rest, not work, is the secret to sustained productivity. And that's because when you rest, your brain activates what we call the default network. This is the most important part of your brain that you've probably never heard of. So what is the default network? The default network is a circuit of neurons that fans out across your brain and allows you to think in completely new ways. It occupies 4 main brain regions: the medial prefrontal cortex, just behind your forehead beneath the brain surface, the posterior cingulate cortex, in the middle of your brain, the precuneus at the top of your brain toward the back, and the angular gyrus near the back of your head just above your ears. We now know that when you activate your default network with rest, you improve your intelligence, creativity, memory, problem-solving abilities, emotional processing, and so much more. It can even reduce your risk of developing neurological illnesses, including depression and dementia. So, how is this possible? How can rest, the act of seemingly doing nothing, have such incredible neurological benefits? Well, we've known for a while that blood flow in the frontal lobe, responsible for nearly all our higher faculties, including intelligence, memory, and attention, is actually at its highest when a person is resting, not working. Funnily enough, for decades, neuroscientists ignored what the brain is doing when we rest. They were so focused on what the brain is doing when we perform a task, they thought of this resting brain activity as meaningless background noise. But in the last few years, we've realized the resting brain is something we can no longer ignore, as it's becoming increasingly evident that engaging in a task dampens the brain, like a dimmer switch turned all the way down, while disengaging from a task stimulates the brain, like a dimmer switch turned all the way up. Now, there's no other way of putting it. This is mind-boggling. How can doing nothing require more energy than doing something? It's as counterintuitive as braking on a bicycle to speed up and pedaling to slow down. But a mountain of new research now shows that as a general rule, the more time you spend doing nothing, the better it is for your brain. Indeed, all the evidence shows that whether you're a doctor, a train driver, a student, whatever task you're doing, you will perform better if you rest beforehand precisely because you're activating your brain's default network. And so, what this new neuroscience is teaching us is that people often succeed in life not despite their inactivity, but because of it. Napping has a much bigger impact on brain health than we ever imagined. We've known for a while now that sleep is a time of strong default network activity. But what's come as a surprise is the finding in 2023 that people who take a 30-minute daytime nap literally have bigger brains than those who power through the day. And the difference is significant. Nappers' brains are 15 cubic centimeters larger than non-nappers' brains, the volume of a small plum. I want you to pause and think about that. Think about the millions of neurons and synapses in that space, and all the cognitive potential that we're losing by not taking that essential 30-minute nap every day. And there's more. That 30-minute nap has also been shown to slow the rate of brain aging by up to 6 years. So when and for how long should we nap? Well, the evidence suggests that napping halfway through your day is ideal, and that naps should last no more than half an hour. Napping longer than that can make us feel groggy and cause a short-term dip in our thinking skills. However, over time, these long naps may still lead to improved brain function. On the other hand, a quick half-hour nap can immediately boost our brain power, making us sharper and more alert. The catch is that the benefits from short naps don't last long. So, to keep our minds sharp and chunky, we should aim for a short nap every day. How do naps do this? We're not entirely sure yet, but one leading theory is that when we nap, the brain and the default network clean themselves. A vat of cerebrospinal fluid washes over our brain, washing away toxic proteins that accumulate during our waking hours, including beta amyloid, a sticky protein thought to be a leading cause of Alzheimer's disease. Even a single night of sleep deprivation can lead to increased levels of beta amyloid in the brain. In terms of the rituals we should be performing before bed, we know that a warm bath 1 to 2 hours before bed not only helps you fall asleep 10 minutes faster, it also leads to deeper and more restorative sleep. Another period of strong default network activity is our hypnagogic phase, the phase between wakefulness and sleep, and our hypnopompic phase, the phase between sleep and wakefulness. And during these phases, please don't scroll on your phone. Instead, just stare into space for a few minutes and then write down your thoughts. And it's worth mentioning that we now think the main reason we're seeing such an alarming rise in young cancer cases is because we spend a lot of time scrolling on our phones just before and just after sleep, because the artificial light of our phones blocks our melatonin production, and melatonin has now been found to have an incredibly powerful anti-cancer effect. Mind-wandering is a powerful tool to activate our brain's default network. Incredibly, we spend 25 to 50% of our waking lives mind-wandering, and it's one of the most effective ways to activate the default network, especially the medial temporal lobe, a region that supports the kind of introspective, creative, and autobiographical thinking that only happens when we're not focused on a task. So, as well as taking more breaks throughout the day, what I really want you to do is to step out of your daily routine for a few minutes and just stare into space. Let your mind wander. This isn't mindfulness or meditation. It isn't about focused attention on the present. It's much more effortless than that. And there's good reason to build more of it into your day. Studies show that when people are asked to perform a repetitive task, those who engage in more mind-wandering almost always perform better precisely because they're engaging their default network, which then increases creativity as well. Even when mind-wandering hinders our performance in a task, when we have our heads in the clouds for just a little too long, it still ramps up creativity overall. So why does mind-wandering do this? Well, some research suggests that mind-wandering facilitates creativity using a mechanism called the fresh start effect, a kind of neuronal reset switch that helps us see problems with fresh eyes. Other research suggests that mind-wandering is a mental filtering process that occurs when the brain decides that the task just isn't worth the effort, and that this then prompts a search for a better, more fulfilling task. So, when we're forced into monotonous work, our brain essentially performs an unconscious calculation that simply asks, is this worth it? And if the answer is no, it will send a message to our default network that basically says, do your thing, wander. Personally, I like to mind wander in the bath, which is a great way to unwind and decompress the brain before bed. Nature reawakens the brain's default network. When we're in green spaces, our brainwaves shift from busy and anxious beta waves to daydreaming and creative alpha waves and meditative theta waves. That's because nature abounds with what psychologists call soft fascinations, things that hold our attention in an effortless and relaxing way. In our everyday urban life, we're relentlessly bombarded by hard fascinations, things like smartphone alerts, emails, train announcements, flashing billboards, overbearing bosses, and tight deadlines, each competing for our attention and causing cognitive fatigue. Astonishingly, studies show that spending time in a forest improves creativity and problem-solving ability by 50%, and memory recall by 20%, compared to walking down an urban street, regardless of the weather. There are broader physiological effects too. Trees release natural chemicals called phytoncides, which protect them from bacteria. And when we breathe them in, especially after just a few days of camping, our immune system activity can increase by up to 40%, and the effects can last for a month. Walking in nature even modifies our skeletal muscles, prompting them to secrete molecules called myokines, also known as hope molecules, which cross the blood-brain barrier and act as an antidepressant. Even something as simple as hugging a tree has real effects. It slows your heart rate, lowers blood pressure, lifts your mood, and lowers stress. So how long should we spend in nature? Well, a study involving 20,000 people found that spending 2 hours a week in green spaces significantly improves psychological well-being. So I'd aim for a minimum of 20 minutes a day. Lastly, on a personal note, this new science has revolutionized my own life. These days, I work solidly for 4 to 6 hours a day and take breaks whenever I need them. I set a daily goal and achieve it, interspersing my work with time spent gazing out of the window, going on long walks in the park, taking afternoon naps, and allowing myself time to simply do nothing. Rest, I have realized, is the key to my health and productivity.
Thank you, Joseph. All right, everyone, you can get a copy of The Brain at Rest using the link in the episode notes. That's our show for the day. If you got something out of it, please leave us a 5-star rating and a glowing review so others can find the show too. And stay tuned to the next Big Idea Daily, because this week we're going to be bringing you all sorts of big ideas that will make your life a little brighter. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.